right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tom, and I'm the VP Marketing here at Ever After. So, at Ever After, we're in the creativity season. That's kind of how we like to call it. That's because we have the CS Leaders List that is basically you guys, everyone that wants to nominate themselves for a creative customer success program play that they've had in 2024 can do so. If you haven't already, feel free. Adi is going to put the link right now in the chat. But we thought, why not kind of take advantage of the creativity season and bring on board a very creative CS leader. And we have Donna Weber with us here today. Donna, for the few people that don't know you, maybe why won't you introduce yourself?
Oh, well, thank you, first of all, for including me, Tom and Adi, and Ever After. And happy November, everybody. My name is Donna Weber. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area in California, and I help high growth companies turn new and existing customers into loyal champion, focusing at the beginning of the journey when it matters most for value delivery.
Cool, very nice. So before we start talking about creativity and customer success, why won't we focus for a second about creativity in general? I'm curious to hear from you. How do you even see creativity? What does that even mean for you? And then maybe I'll share my own perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Well, creativity is thinking out of the box. And, I like to do creative things in my non-professional life. I like to cook, I garden, I crochet. But when it's with professional life, with working with customers, it's thinking out of the box. It's trying new things. It's about being innovative. It's about, brainstorming and having different visions and being inspired. So, looking at something that's unconventional or groundbreaking. So it's doing something maybe that others haven't done before. It's trying something new. It's seeing what works.
Nice. And I think I'll add to that. I think our approach, maybe something that I've learned from Noah, our CEO, is that creativity can also be looking at something that you've been looking at for a very long time, maybe even a problem that you've solved in the past, but now looking at it from a new set of eyes, from fresh eyes, and trying to come up with a new angle for that same thing. So, for example, if we talk about onboarding that you're a master in, if we look at a successful onboarding as like a step-by-step guiding the customer through a journey, then maybe a new, fresh eyes kind of perspective to it is maybe thinking about it as micro wins throughout the process and getting the customer to see value from the get-go in like immediate small steps versus completing onboarding and then seeing that person successfully onboarded, just as an example. Makes
Yeah,
sense?
like a phased deployment, phased onboarding, delivering some micro value along the journey. It's also looking at it from different perspectives, like maybe from your customer's perspective, or not just from your customer as a company, but from each of the user persona perspectives.
100%. So maybe we can even touch on onboarding because we already started talking about it. I'm curious from all your experience, what type of kind of creativity have you seen companies take at when we're thinking about the onboarding process and their ability to reduce time to value, which is such an important metric in onboarding? Can you share some examples that
Yeah,
people can learn from?
absolutely. But before we go there, I just want to emphasize that we're never creative for creative sake. So the key is to be impactful. The key is to deliver results. The key is to do something that is meaningful and appreciated by your company, by your leaders, by your board, and also by your customers. So we're not just going to try stuff out like, I was in last month in New York City for a great customer success conference. And just because I hear of something innovative another company is doing does not mean that that's going to be relevant or work for my company and my customers. So we really need to know, well, what are we trying to do? Where are we trying to move the needle? And knowing what the goals are for the quarter, for the year, know what the metrics are that the leadership and the board are looking for. So that's the first thing you really want to know. And the second thing is you really want to make sure you're delivering the right touch to the right user at the right time. And that's where you can really get creative. And we'll talk more about that, Tom. But it's not just about like giving them everything they might need or want at the beginning of the journey with onboarding. It's about really curating an experience. And if you think about it, in the world of B2B SaaS, which was where most of us work and live, there's a need, there's this B2C, this business to consumer revolution that's been taking place, and the consumers expect a lot more transparency, a lot more communication. They want a relationship. They want a brand they can relate to. So that gives us a lot of ways to be creative by really relating to the right user at the right time with the right touch and knowing what behavior we want to drive. So in that regard, here's
Mm-hmm.
an example of a company I worked with. Here's something creative we did. Based in the UK, a big data platform. Their onboarding was taking about 6 months. And after working with the team, we started to look at, well, how could we deliver some initial value more quickly? And they also had a hard time really to saying, yes, onboarding's done. Nobody really knew when onboarding was done. It kept dragging on and on. But we looked at, well, look at this. We can deploy the first use case or the first scenario within 6 weeks. And then that's some initial value. Teams can celebrate. The buyer can go, phew, I'm so relieved we bought this product. And so within 6 weeks, we're able to check a box saying onboarding is complete. We've deployed the first use case or scenario. But now we have a whole value journey because wait, there's more, just like in those TV commercials. Now we can deliver the next use case, the next value, and there's a whole journey. So that's something that's very creative. And that was a way we went from this monolithic deployment to phased deployment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. I'm trying to think how how are you looking at kind of the balance between not overwhelming the customer with too many creative touch points, but still being able to add some creative elements to the journey that they've known. How do you look at that?
Well, I like to, a tagline I have is transformation, not information. So it's very easy to kind of give a customer everything they might want or need for everything about the product all at the beginning. And just because you've given them information does not mean that information was digested, absorbed, or taken action on. It's like going to a buffet. There's so much food there. And even if I eat a lot of it, doesn't mean I'm going to digest it. I might not feel very well for a few days. So in the same way, we want to create like like an amazing, prefix meal, like where every morsel is like delightful and digestible, and it comes just at the right time. Like you might get an amuse-bouche at the beginning just to kind of whet your appetite. That would be like a quick win, or some initial value, and you might get some food to cleanse your palate. So really thinking and in order to do that, in order to create this meaningful experience, you really need to know your customers as well as the users. So, for example, I'm working with a company right now where they have a dental practice management software. So they have the doctor, the dentist, which I interviewed, a dentist yesterday. They have the front receptionist. They have maybe an IT person. They have the hygienist. They have assistants or technicians. And so each of those users are going to be using this software in a very different way. And they need to be able to access that in a way that is meaningful to them. So, for example, I've worked with big data companies and working with data scientists, data admins. The way they want to receive information is very different from a dentist who's in the middle of, working with patients. So again, you need to really know your users before you can start throwing a creative approach at them.
Mm-hmm. Totally get it. And when we think about the entire customer journey, not just the onboarding phase, I know a lot of companies are trying to come up with creative touch points throughout the journey. Onboarding is very clear. When they get closer to renewal, it's very clear or often clear what are the actions that need to be taken. But the middle part is something that companies typically struggle with. How do we still keep in touch with our customers, but how do we do it in a way that's interesting for them? Because oftentimes, they kind of drift apart. Can you share with us maybe some ideas about how to deepen that relationship with clients throughout those various
Yeah,
stages?
throughout the journey. Well, for example, in the world of customer success, we're used to doing a QBR, quarterly business review. And just because the quarters come, is that the appropriate time? Is that the appropriate cadence just because everyone does a QBR? And also, well, what do we cover in the QBR? Is it meaningful to the customer? Now, I'm drinking a big cup of hot liquid here, and I'm a tea connoisseur. I'm a tea snob. This is my English Yorkshire Gold breakfast tea. But so if you gave me, let's say, hey, welcome aboard, Donna, and you gave me a whole coffee set, that might be nice, but it's not going to be meaningful to me. I just give it to my husband, who is a coffee snob. So again, it needs to be meaningful. So it depends again on your users. So the companies might have a launch day when the product goes live. You have a celebration. Maybe you send them donuts. Maybe you send them energy bars. Maybe if you have a long and arduous onboarding and implementation, you send them some energy bars to keep them going. I think beyond onboarding, you need to define some milestones of value that they need to hit. So some maturity, some depth and breadth in the platform. A really creative way to keep customers engaged is helping them learn from each other, because there's a point where like you could tell them things, but they may not get it. But if they hear what another customer is doing with your product, they're going to get very excited. So having ways to learn from each other, that's a creative way. There's also during review meetings. I know one company who does a demo. Let me just see if I can remember the word. It's like can't quite remember the word, but the customer demos how they use the product to the vendor. So they check in and go, show us how you're using the product. Well, one, you're going to learn like how much they're using it. So there's opportunities to drive deeper value in the product. Two, you might learn some really cool things of what they're doing that you never occurred to you, that other customers can leverage. So they do like a demo back approach. So that's something that, reverse demo. Thank you, Stephanie. I knew it started with an R. I was like thinking re-demo. Reverse demo. So that's something that's really creative. So again, we want to think outside the box, and not just at a QBR. So usually we do onboarding and then you check in once a quarter, and oftentimes we're talking at them and not listening. So the most creative thing is to listen, really hear and anticipate their needs, and provide them the meaningful value at the right time.
Yeah. And I think the theme of what you mentioned is kind of the unexpected. Just do something that they don't expect you to do. And oftentimes, if you can even kind of utilize your own product to do so, that's even greater. Like for us, last year, we kind of surprised our customers with kind of a Spotify wrap of like the year. So
I like
we
that.
utilize the product to show them their entire experience throughout the year. This year, they're probably expecting it, but when we did it for the first time, they didn't expect this to happen. And I think that's what created that surprise and delight moment. And as long as you can come up with lots of ideas like that throughout the year, then I think the customer would think highly of you. And that's something that brings me to the next question. If we try and think about things that are low cost but high impact, what are some ideas in there that maybe you came across in the past of doing these creative moments, creative projects that don't necessarily require doing a massive project for a few months for the entire CST, maybe stuff that could relate to one CSM doing it on their own, and anything that you have in mind?
Absolutely. Well, I like to start with experiments. So rather than trying to figure everything out for everyone and trying to get a buy-in all across the organization, is there an opportunity to try something out? Like you said, maybe one CSM, try something out with 5 accounts. So that would be experimenting. But before you experiment, you need to know, well, what is my question? What is my or assumption, having a hypothesis? What is it that I'm trying to learn from this? What results are we trying to go for? And then ideally you have like your experiment group, and then you have your control group. And so you can say, and you have a baseline metric. So you can say, hey, we sent 5 customers a thank you, a handwritten thank you card. Let's say when they hit a certain milestone. And we've sent those 5 customers this, or we sent them, or these 5 customers received this training that 5 other customers didn't, and measure the impact. How does product usage change? How does logging support tickets change? How does customer satisfaction change? How does ultimately how does renewals, and revenue change? So you want to really try stuff out. But if you just try stuff out and you never really know what's sticking and what's having an impact, then you're just trying stuff out. So you want to do it methodically. Like, let's say you create a spreadsheet and you say, we're going to try this stuff out. Tom is going to try this thing out with 5 customers. We're going to compare with these other 5 customers and stay curious. So being creative is being curious and seeing what you learn. And then you can start to share the results. So let's say, Tom, you had an experiment with 5 customers, you saw dramatic benefits, then there's an opportunity to roll it out across the team and start to share it across the organization. So that's a way you can do something. I see a lot of customer success teams getting really frustrated because they can't get the buy-in across the organization. And I like to beg for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. So, for example, I was at a company where internally everyone was saying that all the customers needed very technical experts, which are very expensive, and I did not agree with that. So I called 10 customers. I didn't, it wasn't a big project. I just said, right, I'm going to interview 10 customers. And nobody cared what I had to say. Nobody cared what I thought or felt. Nobody cared what was going on in the customer success industry. When I had direct quotes from 10 customers who were all pretty much saying the same thing, they all said, we don't need a technical expert. We need a quarterback to guide the journey. That was like transformational for the company. So, it's not always about what you think is right. You got to listen to customers and share what you learn and stay curious. That is the most creative.
I love it. And I'll just add from my own perspective that I think you mentioned the buy-in. I think it's such an important part of the deal. Like if something worked for you as a CSM, work hard on getting the buy-in and think creatively about how you're presenting it internally. And you mentioned the quotes from customers, like I am one for like, take the recordings from Gong, take quotes from there, do like a presentation that makes others see that it was successful for a reason, so that afterwards everyone else would want to implement the same project or program that you've done, because why not? But don't just come to a meeting and say, yeah, I worked very well. Make the effort to convince internally that it was worth it, because when you do it well, it works.
Yeah, and also,
That's just another
you can explore with branding. So I worked with companies where internally we have the names of the programs we're working on. So I'm working with a company now where we define the program. It's called the ACE program. ACE stands for Achieving Customer Excellence. So that's like something people can get behind. Then you can do something free on Canva, right? Get a free subscription on Canva and mock up like a little logo or some colors. Or some icons, you could do a lot. I worked with another company where we called it Project Einstein. Again, that was like, let's think out of the box. Let's put our kind of different thinking hats on. So you can have fun with it and call it a name, brand it, have specific colors. And those are really easy things you can do. You could hire someone on Upwork or Fiverr for, just a small investment and create something that looks really professional.
I love it. Obviously, as a marketing person, big fan of branding. Agree with you. So let's move on to kind of recommending some of the attendees. They might want to submit their own creative story as part of the award that we have. How can you think maybe of helping them to highlight the impact of their creative project? Oftentimes, you do a lot of different programs throughout the year, but it's harder for you to look back and think, oh, this was actually very creative, and how they can highlight what actually made an impact.
Well, again, the most important thing is to know what impact you're trying to have and then capture that baseline metric and then be really curious to see what the benefits are. And like I'm working with a company now where we are piloting an onboarding journey. We're going to pilot it with 5 customers. And then I'm going to interview those customers. So we're going to learn from them. So if you're going to try something new, interview customers to find out what they liked and what they didn't like and what suggestions for improvement they have. And then also the main thing is to measure the impact. So for example, and it has to be meaningful to the business. So, if you can say, hey, we've got, people we drove more attendance to a webinar. Great. Well, so what? What does that mean? Did they use that product that you were promoting? Did product usage increase? Did they learn something and support tickets decreased? You want to really look at what that means to the business bottom line. That's most important.
100% agree. And as we look at 2025 and kind of trends in customer success and how creativity would take place, how do you look at it? What do you think should be the focus from your experience of working with recent clients, maybe?
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but trying out stuff with, AI.
AI.
Yeah, large language modeling. Like I know that's the tag word that everyone says, but try stuff out. So like I play around with Chat GPT, and sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. I think in 2025 there's a huge opportunity to be creative with hybrid customer journeys. So explore, maybe you have these high touch customers, explore their digital moments that you can deliver. That might be a welcome email, that might be some follow up, that might be some self-paced content, right? So consider like in your most largest enterprise companies, are there small things you can do that can be digital? In your low touch customers or tech touch customers, maybe they're a completely digital journey, but are there high touch moments that you can deliver that can really be transformative for them? So for example, I was working with this company that has a big data platform, a different one from the first one. We were building out a self-paced a journey. And I just kept hearing from internal teams and customers saying, we need to be able to ask questions. We need to be able to get answers. And when I interviewed their customers, one of them shared a great experience they had with another company where they had in-app chat. So here's a way, and we're not talking bots at that time, but here's a way, this is a self-paced journey, but where people were falling off at the trial and during the beginning of onboarding, they lost a lot. That if people could get this high touch moment, with a real person to answer their questions, then that keeps them engaged and now they're sticking around rather than dropping off. And in addition, then the company really can learn what problems people are having and create self-paced content. Or, like I like to look at one-to-many, like it doesn't always have to be one-to-one or tech touch. It can be, you could have cohorts of customers learning together. Could have cohorts of customers supporting each other. So there's a lot of creative ways to do one-to-many approaches. So that was a very transformative way. I didn't think about it. The brilliant teams and at that company didn't think about it. It's the customers that we learned from.
Love it. Love it. I'll add another point about AI that I think could be relevant. When you think about AI, try and think about that as it relates to personalization. That is always a key word in customer success. And any type of interaction that you have with your clients could be personalized through AI. So even if it's a GIF that you want to send, even if it's a personalized video, even if it's just a visual that represents the two sides, maybe an interaction that you've had, you can go to one of the AI platforms, even Canva these days is amazing for that, and create a visual that reflects maybe something that you've discussed last week, maybe from the personal life of the client. Anything of that sort is something that breaks the ice, creates that relationship that's unique. So utilize these tools. A lot of them are free, and even the ones that aren't are pretty cheap. So I highly recommend thinking about
I love
AI
that
from
idea.
that perspective.
And people learn through visuals. So, rather than sending them a 10 point, all the things they need to know or do, can you create a visual that's going to really help them process that information? And that's definitely a creative way to move from lots of that kind of information overload to something that they can actually process.
Yeah, even those 10 things, those could be an infogram that you can create in 2 seconds these days through AI. So think of those things that way, it'll make a big impact.
I'm going to
All
check out
right.
the
So
feature on
I
Canva.
think
I
we're
haven't tried
close
that yet.
to, yeah. Oh, I'm obsessed. Let's just see if someone has a question before we wrap things up.
All
In
right.
case anyone wants to ask something, I'm going to give you just 2 minutes maybe. And if not, well, thank
Or
you.
yeah, so in the chat, ask your questions or let us know some creative things you're thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the Ever After website, you can see the 2024 Creative Customer Success Leader winners. And I was having a look at that earlier this week, and it's just amazing what our peers are doing. So just have a look through
Mm-hmm.
there and get some ideas that might spark some thoughts for you.
100%. All right, I see that no one's adding a question. So thank you so much, Donna. It was really fun chatting with you today. And thank you everyone that joined us. And the webinar is being recorded. We'll send over the recording.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck with your creative customer success approaches and for your nominations for the award.